Today, we're diving into the fascinating yet troubling world of tech billionaires and their ideological blind spots. Hi, I'm Holbrook, and here's what's on my mind. Billionaires so consumed by their wealth and privilege that they are oblivious to the realities of everyday American life. Marc Andreessen, a prominent venture capitalist and self-proclaimed visionary, recently sat down for a podcast interview with the New York Times, hosted by Ross Douthat. His remarks provide a window into the minds of Silicon Valley elites and their inability, or refusal, to recognize the deeper problems facing America. But there's a bigger picture here. Andreessen's views are part of a broader shift among many tech billionaires, the new American oligarchs, toward supporting Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Andreessen is now serving as an advisor to the Trump administration. Why? According to Andreessen, it's a reaction against what he describes as the moralizing and smugness of progressive politics. He claims these billionaires feel alienated by a Democratic Party that prioritizes identity, politics, and environmental regulations over economic growth and innovation. Andreessen insists that many in his circle see Trump and Republican ideology as a better fit for their priorities. He explained, Trump is funny and entertaining while his opponents come off as sanctimonious. This flippant dismissal of Trump's divisive rhetoric and policies highlights how far removed these oligarchs are from the daily struggles of ordinary Americans. For them, it's not about social cohesion or fairness. It's about a political landscape that best protects their wealth and influence. For those unfamiliar, Marc Andreessen's rise to wealth and influence began in the 1990s. He co-created the first widely used web browser, Netscape Navigator, which helped bring the internet into mainstream use. Netscape's IPO in 1995 was a landmark moment, sparking the dot-com boom and earning Andreessen millions before he even turned 25. After Netscape was sold to AOL, Andreessen continued to build his fortune through a series of tech ventures, eventually co-founding Andreessen Horowitz, one of Silicon Valley's most powerful venture capital firms. The firm has invested in some of the biggest names in tech: Facebook, Twitter, Airbnb, and Coinbase, to name a few. Today, Andreessen manages billions of dollars in assets and remains a vocal advocate for tech-driven solutions to global challenges. One of the more telling moments in Marc Andreessen's recent interview was his assertion that universities are radicalizing and indoctrinating students into leftist, Marxist ideologies. According to him, higher education is churning out activists who oppose capitalism and the free market, creating a new generation of what he dismissively calls woke warriors. But let's take a closer look at what's really happening. Andreessen's fear that universities are indoctrinating students into leftist ideology is not new. It's a common refrain among conservative elites. But the truth is, universities are not teaching Marxism as a lifestyle. They're teaching critical thinking, exposing students to diverse ideas, and encouraging them to question the status quo. When Andreessen criticizes this, what he's really rejecting is the idea that graduates and others are starting to envision a more equitable version of capitalism, one that works for everyone, not just the wealthy elite. What Andreessen sees as indoctrination is really an awakening. University students are learning about systemic inequality, the history of exploitation, and the need for ethical corporate practices. They're not rejecting capitalism entirely, they're questioning why it's structured to benefit so few at the expense of so many. This isn't radical, it's responsible citizenship. What Andreessen fails to recognize is that this new generation isn't anti-capitalist, they're pro-ethics. They see the potential of capitalism to be a force for good, to uplift society as a whole, rather than just the privileged few. Using corporations and tax structures to benefit all of society isn't radical or dangerous. It's altruistic. It's about creating a system where innovation serves humanity, not just billionaires. This idea of ethical capitalism, one that balances profits with social responsibility, isn't some leftist fantasy. Let's be clear, if the mega-wealthy and mega-corporations were paying appropriate taxes, this country would have far few financial issues and the lives of everyday Americans would improve. What's more troubling is Andreessen's failure to recognize his own indoctrination into MAGA and Republican political ideologies. He is transformed into a MAGA partisan ideologue. His worldview echoes a conservative playbook, glorifying deregulation, minimizing government intervention, and treating critics of capitalism as enemies of progress. In the interview, he insisted, "Big government doesn't solve problems, it creates them." This statement is pulled straight from decades of Republican rhetoric, which has demonized public investment while championing tax cuts for the wealthy. Andreessen's embrace of these ideas shows how deeply embedded he is in a Silicon Valley bubble that aligns closely with MAGA principles, whether he admits it or not. Andreessen's ideology reflects the tech world's growing alignment with conservative politics. Andreessen is so far removed from the experiences of everyday Americans that he can't, or won't, acknowledge the systemic failures his wealth depends on. For example, he champions the idea that capitalism lifts people out of poverty, but ignores how the US version of capitalism is systematically stripping workers of protections. Healthcare, he doesn't seem to realize that millions of Americans are one medical bill away from bankruptcy. The real problem is that people like Andreessen don't have to deal with these challenges. They live in a world where wealth insulates them from every inconvenience. Meanwhile, working families are struggling with stagnant wages, unaffordable housing, and rising costs for healthcare and education. It's not pessimism, it's reality. At the end of the day, the new American oligarchs, including Marc Andreessen, are simply following where the wind blows. Their loyalty isn't to any ideology or vision for a better society. It's to the political party that promises the most favorable conditions for producing profits and maximizing shareholder value. Right now, that means aligning with a Republican Party that prioritizes tax cuts, deregulation, and a hands-off approach to corporate governance. Their embrace of these policies isn't about patriotism or progress. It's about self-interest. By dressing their decisions in the language of innovation and freedom, they obscure the reality. Their actions are designed to preserve and expand their wealth, regardless of the cost to the society they claim to serve. This isn't leadership. It's opportunism cloaked in rhetoric. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going.